Welcome back, everyone. We are here for another edition of the Wake Forest Summer Immersion Program's Fireside Chats. I am so excited to be here with two of our most veteran academic leaders for the Psychology Institute. So I have with me Dr. Christian Waugh and Dr. Melissa Maffeo. They have been with us leading the Psychology Institute since 2017. So we are excited to get to know them a little bit better today and learn more about the Psychology Institute. So Dr. Waugh, why don't you kick things off by telling us a little bit about yourself and what inspired you to lead the Psychology Institute, and then we'll do the same for you, Dr. Maffeo.
Sure. Originally from the East Coast, Maryland, and I got into psychology when I was in college, College of William and Mary, and I learned that I really like to try to understand how people felt and why they did the things they did, because there was always a mystery to me. So I got into studying it, and what I do now is I'm a professor of psychology, and I do work on emotions and stress regulation. And the reason why I got into the Summer Institute was I wanted to share this sort of passion that I have for psychology and trying to figure people out with high school students, with people who may not know a lot about the scientific study of psychology, and who may be particularly excited to learn some of the cool things that we tell them.
Awesome. Yeah, Dr. Maffeo, do you want to kind of share a little bit about your background and what led you to Wake Forest and maybe some of the research that you're involved in?
Absolutely. Thanks, Betsy. So my trajectory was a little bit like Dr. Waugh's. I became interested in psychology really when I was in high school. But then when I got into college, I was really interested in psychology, but that's also at the same time I discovered neuroscience. And I really was able to follow a path that married psychology and neuroscience together. My background is more formal in neuroscience, but here I'm a professor in the psychology department, and I love teaching psychology and neuroscience because I love teaching about the interaction of the brain and behavior and how our brain really drives everything that motivates us. And I got involved in the summer immersion program again because I love teaching this stuff, and I think it's really awesome to do it at a younger age when students might not have the college level access to that material.
Yeah, thank you both for sharing a little bit about yourselves. And we are just so lucky to have you both. I think one of the reasons why we came to you back in 2017 was because we asked Wake Forest students, who are your favorite professors in the psychology department? And so we're lucky to have Wake Forest faculty teaching high school students. It's very rare that actual college professors and faculty are willing to take up 2 weeks of the summer to teach high schoolers. And so we're thankful for it. And we love how engaging you both are and fun. Okay, I'll let you, Dr. Maffeo, kind of talk us through the next question. And then Dr. Waugh, you can kind of chime in. What does a typical day look like in the Psychology Institute? And maybe walk us through some of the highlights and the fun things that students will get to experience.
Okay. I would say the typical day, first and foremost, is really interactive and really hands-on. So Dr. Waugh and I have curated a schedule that we think really helps educate students on behavior and what a psychologist does from day to day, and then sort of the research that we think is particularly cool. So no matter what day it is, there's going to be hands-on activities and ways that students can engage with the material. I'm a little bit biased, but my favorite day is the day we do the dissection of the sheep brain. So we'll spend the morning talking about neuroanatomy and talking about different brain structures and how they help control behavior. And then we'll quite literally dive into a sheep brain and see some of these structures. In the afternoon of that day, we talk about how our sensory systems tell us about the world. And we'll get to do some experiments that really change how our sensory systems tell us about the world. So one example is that we'll have an opportunity to taste something that we call the miracle berry that actually changes the sweet receptors on your tongue so that anything sour that you eat tastes sweet. So if students want to, they can try this miracle berry and then do something like eat a lemon, and the lemon tastes really, really sweet. And that's one of my favorite days.
That is for sure one of the students' favorite days too, year after year. So now, Dr. Waugh, we want to hear about your favorite day of the Psychology Institute. So talk us through what your favorite day is.
Yeah, sure. So I will add Dr. Maffeo's favorite day, that there are definitely a lot of interaction and engagement, and it's just amazing that way. But what's really, I think, kind of interesting about what we do is we actually do mix in some times where we just talk to them and teach them about the science behind these things. So it's not just a day camp, right, where you go to a museum and you try and you touch stuff. It's we are teaching them the most advanced science that we know on these different topics. So if you've ever wondered, can your teenager sit still for an hour and listen to someone just talk to them? The answer is yes. And the way you do that is you tell them really stinking cool stuff that tends to blow their mind. And so we sprinkled that throughout as well. So my favorite day is actually talking about how emotions impact us, about the unconscious mind and all the stuff going on outside of our awareness. We talk about disorders and how interesting they are. We talk about decision making and bias, and with the goal that hopefully, if they're more informed about these things, they can become better people, basically.
Yeah, I think it's such a good combination of teaching, strong teaching, and lots of hands-on fun things. So a lot of summer immersion program institutes are able to go on field trips throughout the course of the week. So, Dr. Waugh, why don't you talk us through, is there a field trip that is particularly
Hmm.
interesting for students, and why don't you walk us through that?
Sure. So there's two big field trips. And the first field trip, we want the students to experience what it's like to kind of be a psychology researcher. Like, what would you want to observe about people? And how can you code those observations such that you learn something about it? What would you hypothesize? So we have students come up with some ideas about what they would observe. We take them to the mall and we have them just watch people and write in their notebook how many times people are doing stuff and eating or checking their phone or whatever, and then they formulate the data into graphs and then they present it at the end of the week, which is, I think, really really fun. The other really fun field trip is we go down to Charlotte. It was about an hour and a half from here, and we go to the Museum of Illusions because it's kind of obvious if you think about it, but it's not super obvious if you don't. That magic and illusions are based on psychology. That's what they are. They're about how to leverage how people think and what they pay attention to in such a way to sort of get past that and present something that seems magical. So we teach them about that. We have typically we'll have a magician come in and also go to the Museum of Illusions. And then on the way back from the museum in the hour and a half bus ride, we do some more activities, but I'll leave that a secret for now.
Yeah, I gotta leave something to be just for the students to be excited for. Um,
Exactly.
all right. So, Dr. Maffeo, I'm gonna pass this question off to you. So, oftentimes our students who are really excited about psychology are equally excited about potentially joining us for the Neuroscience Institute. So, and I can help kind of talk through the Neuroscience Institute as well, but what would you say are the biggest differences between someone who's really focused on joining the Neuroscience Institute versus the Psychology Institute?
Absolutely. So I would say that that psychology is the scientific study of human behavior. So that's really the takeaway of what we do in our institute is we want to understand human behavior from as many different angles as we can. And psychologists tend to look at that through many different angles, right? So it's through social interactions with other humans, through changes over their developmental lifespan, and then through changes in the brain as well. I'm trained as a neuroscientist, but my home is in psychology. So we do spend a portion talking about the brain, but it's much more focused on the brain's role in behavior and our brain's role in our perception of the world around us. In the Neuroscience Institute, certainly some of that will come out, but it's going to be a little bit more about the functioning of the brain and a little bit less of an emphasis on the brain's role in behavior.
Perfect. Yep. Thank you so much for for talking through that. And our Neuroscience Institute is actually also led by a psychology professor, Dr. Anthony Solly. All right, so let's kind of dive into logistics about the Psychology Institute, because I think students are interested to kind of be able to envision what this is going to look like. So, Dr. Waugh, where does the Psychology Institute take place? What do students need to bring? Are there prerequisites? In what ways do students need to be prepared, and kind of what will it look like for them?
Sure. So where it takes place is in our building. So we have a beautiful building, Department of Psychology, and has some other departments in there. And students will be brought to this building, and we'll do our classes there. We'll do our activities, most of our activities there, at least the ones that we're not going on field trips for. And so the students will be learning about psychology in the same rooms, in the same context as college students would. As far as things to bring, I'll just mention generally, if you want to bring a laptop, that's great. Usually someone brings a laptop. We do have a presentation at the end, but there's ways around it if you don't want to bring that, and that's fine. But besides that, I'll actually kick it over to Dr. Maffeo for the brain day and what they need to bring for that.
So since we're going to be in a lab, we're going to have to use proper laboratory personal protective equipment. A lot of that will be provided by us. So we will provide gloves and those sorts of things. So you don't have to bring your nitrile gloves. But please do be sure on that day, at least, wear long pants and closed-toed shoes because we want to protect you as much as possible. But everything else you need, we will provide to you.
Awesome. Yeah. And I'll just chime in that just as a reminder, all of our institutes are not for credit. So this experience is, you're not getting college credit, although you'll be taught by Wake Forest faculty. You get a certificate of completion at the end of the week for your participation. But in addition to that, there are no prerequisites for the Psychology Institute. So you don't have to be in an AP psych class in your high school. You don't have had to have taken a psychology class prior to this. It's really so that you can kind of learn more about the field of psychology and maybe just explore what you may have always been really curious about. So this is just an opportunity for you to kind of gain clarity and insight about the field of psychology. Yeah, so there's no prerequisites.
Which is actually that's a benefit. That is a benefit. I'll tell you why. Because if this was for credit, what we would have to do is we'd have to teach all the things we're supposed to teach on, even the things we're less interested in, or maybe you don't find as interesting. And we have to give you tests and like grade you on stuff, and then it becomes more of a slog. But what we can do, because this is for credit, is we can tell you the highlights. We can, Dr. Maffeo and I have picked out the topics in psychology that we love the most, and we think are the most interesting and cool. And we can just talk about those, and we can tell stories, and we can talk about exactly how we want to do it. We can do magic, right? We can do this fun sort of thing. So you get it's a different feel for it, but it's a very much intrinsically rewarding, really internally rewarding, as opposed to, yes, I got an A for that credit class. So I think it's a benefit.
For sure. Yeah. Learning's more fun that way. All right.
Yeah.
So, Dr. Maffeo, I'll ask you this question. How do you think students' experiences in the Psychology Institute might connect with a future college major or a future career? And what kind of skills or insights do you think they'll walk away with?
There's a lot of answers to that question, and I think that they're great. So, lots of people have interest in psychology, and one of the great things about this institute, you don't have to have any prior exposure to formal psychology at all. Just bring your curiosity, and we can take that in a direction that you think is interesting. So a lot of this is student led too. So if there's a particular topic that a student really wants to learn about, we can definitely do it, but we can't devote a whole day toward it or anything like that, but we can do a portion of that. So it helps students just gain good critical thinking and analytical skills, or start practicing those skills at the very least. And those skills are going to be good regardless of what field that student decides to go into if they decide to pursue college. We do have a session that's devoted to careers in psychology, where we have a few different psychologists come and talk about just various career paths. We're going to do it like a panel. So students who know that they're interested in psychology, but don't really know where that should lead them, if they want to go the clinical or counseling route, or if they want to do the research professor route, or maybe they want to go to medical school, we can help kind of guide their thinking and those sorts of things. And then I'll also say that Dr. Waugh and I, we've been doing this for a very long time. We've had a lot of students in our classes that have gone through the summer immersion program in psychology and then have come to Wake Forest and declared psychology as a major. And then we get to have them in our classes as college students. And that is very fun and very rewarding.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll just add to that, one way I like to summarize it to people is you should care about psychology and learning about it if you ever want to interact with any other human ever again. Like whether that be in your job or in your relationship or your buddies or anything. Like this is worldwide applicable. So unless you're going to go off and live in a cabin in the woods by yourself and only order things from Amazon, doing this institute will open your eyes to things that'll change your life.
That's awesome. Yes. Everyone, we should just have the Psychology Institute be a requirement for all of our summer immersion students.
I agree.
That's
100%
fine.
agree.
Okay, well, what Dr. Maffeo said brought up a really good point about Wake Forest students. So, Dr. Waugh, do you want to talk us through the role of teaching assistant and how our Psychology Institute students will actually be interacting with Wake Forest undergrads throughout the week?
Yeah. So what's really cool about our Wake Forest undergraduate students is that they are so willing to give back and to contribute to the learning of others. So what they have done is create a program where students at Wake Forest will attend these summer sessions throughout the summer, and they'll be helpers, they'll be assistants. They're there to guide you from your dorm to where you're supposed to be. They're there to help answer any questions you have. They're there to help us during the day, throughout the day, and doing things and compiling data and all sorts of things. And they're just a great way. They're a great connection to the Wake Forest community. They're a great resource for our high school students to know what it actually looks like to be a college student. And yeah, it's just a wonderful addition.
Yeah, the teaching assistants kind of serve as like the camp counselors of the week. And so
Yeah.
we have 2 teaching assistants for each one of our 23 this year institutes. And so most often for the Psychology Institute, we'll have psych majors who are guiding and mentoring our Psychology Institute students throughout the week. So that's pretty awesome to get that, firsthand knowledge about what it's like to be a psych major at Wake Forest. All right, now for the fun part of this fireside chat, what we've all been waiting for, learning a little bit more, some fun facts about our academic leaders, Dr. Waugh and Dr. Maffeo. So the first fun question, all of these have been fun, but this is a fun question because we want to know a fun fact, quirky hobby, hidden talent that both of you have that your high school students would be surprised to learn about.
Fun fact, hidden talent.
I'll do mine.
Question. Yeah, dears.
I have a not so secret fascination with the paranormal. Probably it'll come up in class.
That's right. That's right.
I'm a super geek about anything related to ghosts or zombies or anything like that. Tarot card reading, I eat that up. From a heavily scientific perspective, I will add.
Right.
I think it's fascinating.
That is pretty fascinating. I guess my fun fact is I've seen a ghost, and I keep telling Dr. Maffeo that I have, but she doesn't believe me. Another fun fact is, and this is sort of related to my hobbies. I like to travel a lot, so I've been to all 50 states and spent significant time in all 50 states, as well as 40 other countries. And one of the things I like to do, for example, related to that, is take students to study abroad programs where we spend a semester together in Italy or Austria or London. And that's just that's just my favorite thing to do. And I've learned that not everybody's been to all 50 states, which is kind of cool. I think it's a skate thing, I guess.
That's a fun fact. It's on my
Yeah.
list. And
Yeah.
Dr. Maffeo, do you want to share how you also brought students overseas?
Yeah. So Dr. Waugh has done it more times than I have. I brought a group of students to London with me 3 years ago this semester, and we stayed for a semester in London, and we studied biopsychology and psychopharmacology, which was just such a really amazing experience, and I cannot wait to have an opportunity to do it again.
Yeah, so just a plug for studying abroad at Wake Forest.
Mm-hmm.
Wake Forest University owns 3 beautiful homes. I'm going to try to get these locations right, but correct me. London, Vienna, and Venice, Italy, correct? So Dr. Waugh and Dr. Maffeo have both been able to stay in these beautiful mansions in these 3 countries and teach students, groups of Wake Forest students while they're doing that. So that's pretty awesome. So that's just a fun fact about Wake and a fun perk if you ever come to Wake Forest.
Totally.
Anything else to add there before we dive into our rapid fire questions?
I'm also related to William Wallace, I found out, and I think Abraham Lincoln. So that's pretty cool. Although I didn't really do that, so I don't know.
It's a fun fact. Okay, rapid fire. We're gonna start with favorite book, and whoever thinks of your favorite book first can just go ahead.
Oh, this is really rapid fire.
Yeah.
It.
It's
Stephen King. It.
Oh,
Yes.
okay.
Horror book.
Mine is History of Love by Nicole Cross.
Oh, I've heard that's really good, Dr.
I love
Maffeo.
that book.
I'll have to read that one.
It's better. It's better.
It's better. Okay, favorite movie or TV show?
I'll do that one first. Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind is my absolute
That's a good one.
Mm-hmm.
That is a good one. It's a tie for me between Braveheart, hence the William Wallace thing, and Anchorman. I love Anchorman.
They're 2 very different movies. Fun fact, the Psychology Institute, we have a psychology movie night where we watch psychology themed movies. So something else to look forward to. Okay. Currently listening to music or podcast? Favorite podcast, favorite music?
So this may bleed over into your other question, next question, but so I listen to audiobooks. That's the thing I listen to. So I'm like super heavy into listening to fantasy audiobooks.
My listen lately is a podcast called The Dropout, and it's a deep dive into the Theranos and Elizabeth Holmes story, and it is so fascinating.
Wow.
Gotta add that to my list.
I really like it.
Okay, favorite food?
Pizza.
Crawfish etouffee.
Must have had that when you were spending your time in Louisiana.
That's exactly right.
All right. Do either of you have any pets?
One dog, Jack.
I thought you had an orange cat, Dr. Waugh. You have a dog.
I have a dog, yeah.
What's your dog's name?
Jack.
I didn't even know that you had a dog.
Neither did I.
Yeah, I got one. He's new, August. He looks like a sheep. That's a fun fact. In fact, he so looks like a sheep that my daughter won a costume contest dressed up as Little Bo Peep, and he was the sheep.
That's a really fun fact. We got to see the picture.
There you go.
Yeah.
There you go. Yeah.
That's very cute. I have a geriatric German Shepherd named Colton. He just turned 14. He's really old. He barely
Gotta
gets around, but he gets around.
Yeah. Well, I need to see pictures of your dogs. I feel like I didn't know that about either of you. I feel like a bad person not knowing that. Okay, favorite hobby?
Hiking.
I love video games. I
Oh my
love it.
gosh.
I grew up on video games. I have not been able to kick them as a habit. So I love video games. Love them.
What's your favorite
I
video
also
game?
like hiking too. My favorite video game is it used to be Witcher 3, but it's probably Baldur's Gate 3 now. Baldur's Gate 3 is an amazing game. You know, all the teenagers watching out there, you know. If you know, you know.
All right, last rapid fire question. Favorite place you've ever traveled?
So many. Banff
Mm.
National Park. So Banff National Park near Calgary, Canada, is an insanely wonderfully beautiful place that is impossible to describe verbally. And it doesn't, and any picture that you've taken of it doesn't do it justice. It's amazing.
I've always wanted to go there. What
It looks
about you?
beautiful. I've never been.
Yeah.
Mine is related to my hobby, which is hiking. So last summer, I went to the Italian Alps and I hiked the Alta Via 1 trail. So that was a 9-day hiking trip through the Italian Alps, and it was amazing and wonderful and hard. But same thing as Dr. Waugh said, the pictures don't come anywhere near doing it justice. And I hiked it by myself, but every time I came across another hiker, all anyone would ever talk about is how our pictures are not doing the thing we wanted them to do. But it was an amazing, amazing adventure.
That's awesome. All right, well, we are winding down our Psychology Institute Fireside Chat, sadly. But Dr. Waugh, I'll let you start with this, or you can share a few words, and Dr. Maffeo, you can finish them off. If you had to describe the Psychology Institute, we'll say in 4 words, so you can each have 2, what would they be?
I would say illuminating and mind blowing. I'm going to put a dash in between there. So that counts as
Ooh,
one word.
good one. Mind blowing. That's good.
Mm.
Well, so mine then I guess would piggyback off Dr. Waugh's, because I was going to say it's surprising. I think that a lot of students get surprised about things that they'll learn in a good way, just about thinking about psychological processes that they might not have known about. So definitely surprising, mind blowing. And then I would say interactive. It's very interactive, and that includes literal hands-on things, but what Dr. Waugh was talking about earlier, just conversations that we can have back and forth with the students.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love that you both said surprising, mind-blowing, because we've built in the session on the last day, Friday, called Burning Questions, because all the learning that has taken place throughout the course of the week leads to more questions and more curiosities and more, burning questions. So students just walk away wanting to know more. So I love that we have our burning question session on Friday, because those words really do kind of describe what students are feeling at the end of the week.
Totally.
Finish the sentence. I'll let you both finish so that you can start, Dr. Maffeo. You should experience the Psychology Institute if you're someone who blank.
Is curious. I think, is that what you were going to say?
That's what I was
Great
going to say. Yeah.
minds here. We're so
Right.
insane.
That's right.
I think if people have a curiosity about what motivates other people, why people act the way they do, why people think the way they do, but then also, am I going to infringe on your next thing too? If you have an open mind and you want to learn more about that, because people are motivated by so many different things, and we can explore different perspectives in this class.
All right, Dr. Waugh, you should
Ditto.
experience the Psychology Institute if you're someone who blank.
Who cares about understanding people and why they do the things they do. Because we think we know a lot of times of like why people do what they do. Sometimes it's mysterious. Sometimes we think we figured it out. But what we're going to show you are a lot of surprising and mind-blowing facts about the human mind, about human behavior, that will really change your perspective on people's motivations, who they are, what makes you you. So if you're curious about that, oops, sorry to borrow your word, Dr. Maffeo, but if you're curious about that, then you should come see us.
Great. All right, 2 more questions. What's your favorite thing about working with high school students in the Psychology Institute, Dr. Maffeo?
I would say their curiosity. I feel like we're repeating things but it really is. It's students that have experienced the world, but they don't understand always why someone did the thing that they did. And I love that we don't have a set curriculum and we don't have to give exams or grades or anything like that, because we can kind of take it in a direction that students are interested in. And there's always just so much interest. And like you were talking about, Betsy, that burning questions at the end, because over the course of the week, yeah, we talk about various aspects of psychology and neuroscience, and then students want to know more about that thing. And that's what the burning questions session is for. So it's really cool just to kind of hear the questions that have been lingering in the back of their mind all week.
Yeah, what about you, Dr. Waugh? What's your favorite thing about working with the high schoolers?
I tend to be a very high arousal, active person. So what I love about the high school students is their enthusiasm. My favorite reaction is when Dr. Maffeo and I will say something and you hear, "Whoop." That's my favorite. I love that. By the time they've gone through college, they're like, okay, do I need to know this for the test? Like with a high school student, it sometimes we say things that may so shock them, and they're not afraid to show it, which is what really makes it fun. It makes it fun to teach them for sure.
That's great. Yeah. Okay, last question. Why Wake?
Wake Forest is a place where you have people like Dr. Maffeo and I, who are leaders in our field, want to teach you about that. We're not just reading from a textbook. We're not just reading offline. We're not just doing a class that's been done the same way for 30 years. We're out there knowing what the field is doing, knowing the newest research, the newest ways to think about things, and contributing to that. And not only that, and keeping it for ourselves, but we want to share it with you. So what you'll get is this unprecedented, basically, access to some of the thought leaders of the country or even the world, and that's across all the departments. And it's just an eye-opening experience.
I think I'd add to what Dr. Waugh said by saying that we are, experts in our field, and then we are also experts in teaching that material to students. We are not professors who are going to stand up in the front of a lecture hall behind a podium and talk at students for an hour and expect you to memorize everything we said. Not only are we interested in the science of psychology, we're interested in the science of learning, and we really want to support the learning and the education and the growth of our future generation of psychologists. And so we love research and we love our jobs, and part of our job is teaching students, and we love that too. And I do think that Wake Forest is unique in that. I really do.
Wow. A great final answer, you both. Well, thank you so much for your time, for joining us for a summer immersion program fireside chat. We are lucky to have you, and we hope, students and families, that you will learn more about the Psychology Institute, apply to the summer immersion program, and we hope to see you this summer for the Psychology Institute. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Betsy.